Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're watching us from. Welcome to the Linda Barnes Show on TV Bakwetu. Welcome. If you could kindly let us know where you're catching us from, that would be fantastic. We're live on all our social media handles as well as YouTube, actually, because sometimes we haven't been live on YouTube. So thank you so much for joining us. Let me know if you can hear us so that we are not having those technical issues that we have been plagued with the past few weeks. If you could just pop a comment in the section, in the comment section below. Let us know where you're watching us from, if you can hear us. If I'm audible enough, that would be fantastic. Let's look who's here. Just and let us know where you're watching us from. Let's have a look who's here. We have got New York, Canada's in the house. Goodness, we've got Zambia. If you're in Zambia, please let us know where you are catching us from. It will be quite interesting to see where everyone is watching from. Now, today's program is quite unique. After the last previous programs that we had, you have literally inundated us with comments, with questions, and more of them actually I could not personally, and I told you guys not to inbox because we were literally flooded with so many messages. We have brought Mr. Munyumba Mutwale back again so that he can help us navigate through this huge question that all of you guys had. So we have actually just decided to have a special series specifically just for you guys. So this series is going to involve financial literacy. Now, it's a very free series. Let me just put a disclaimer there. So whatever you hear, it's from the expert. And I personally do not have any vested interest in whatever he's going to share. I don't have any stakes, if you like. I don't have any investments in whatever he's going to be discussing. So please kind of just accept what it's free service. So we want you guys to learn what's out there, especially now that you have got a very fertile economic environment, a very fertile business environment. So we thought we'll provide this free financial literacy, and then you can decide what you want to do with it. Without further ado, I would like to invite my guest tonight, Mr. Munyumba Mutwale. You have proven to be very popular with our viewers. Welcome back.
Thank you very much, and I'm glad that I'm glad to be back by popular demand and not by being forced on them. I'll tell you that.
Yes. So, can you just talk our viewers through it? Why are you back?
Well, it appears I think in a slight moment, I think we started to talk about Zambian financial markets and the opportunities that are there in terms of investing back in Zambia. And part of, in fact, my core job in that I am an investment advisor is to actually encourage as many people and also guide people through the process of making investments back in Zambia and building wealth portfolios back in Zambia. So an opportunity to speak to a wide range of Zambians across many nations, which is what's represented here. To think about our topic today, which I was going to say is building a wealth portfolio home. Like a personal building that personal wealth plan. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping that that'll be able to catch a lot of people's attention.
I think it will. Now, I've already had some questions from folk back in Zambia. The topic says back home in investing and building a financial portfolio back home. What about us, Linda? You know, we're back home, so this program does not apply to us. What would you say?
It applies to everybody. The same investment opportunities that are available to the Zambians abroad are available to the Zambians who are here. It's not really that different. However, it seems as though a lot of us look around whenever we're looking for investments. We become very diaspora ourselves. I have Zambians within Zambia always talking about, I'd like to invest in the New York Stock Exchange. I'm like, but you're right here. There's a
Lusaka Stock
diamond in
Exchange is there.
right here. and it's one of the best performing stock markets in Africa right now.
Mm.
With our bond market, the best performing in the continent, with our currency, the best performing in the world. Why do you want to run away when the best show's in town?
Absolutely. And we have a lot of people coming from China, coming from the United Kingdom. And as Zambians, we get really cross that why are these foreigners? I can't say that because I'm a foreigner in another land myself. But people back home are always quick to say, why are these foreigners coming to take our resources? They're coming to take our business opportunities. And this is where you and I were discussing this. And we thought, why don't we just provide this service where people can learn what's out there. Now, as a people, we're very skeptical, and that's understandable. We've had very bad examples for leaders in the past, so we've been burned, and we're very skeptical. On my social media platform, when you were last year, when inadvertently discussed the bonds, we had more than 600 people sending messages in the inbox, and that you can I'm sure you know that
Yeah,
it's just not sustainable. So
yeah.
another little disclaimer, please do not inbox my personal inbox or to inbox more especially. I'm going to put a comment on Facebook, and if you are interested in anything that Mr. Mutwala is going to discuss, register your interest on that thread, not in the inbox. Please don't do that. Not that I don't want to talk to you, but it's just going to completely crash my inbox like it did last time. And I hate letting people down. So people will be
Yeah.
like, why didn't you respond? So please, please, please. Just respond on the thread that we're going to add tomorrow morning, and then Mr. Mtola will be able to see those comments. And if he needs to act on them to contact any of you guys, he'll do just that. Now, I'm going to step back and let the expert do the teaching, and it's all yours.
Thank you very much. And thank you to everybody who's here with me tonight. I'm just going to see if I can just share these. I think I'm just trying to share my screen quickly, so that we can all have a good, I think, a good session today. So I think if everybody can catch a vision of this, I hope everybody will be. Thank you very much for joining me. And thank you very much to all the people here. And Linda, thank you for giving me this opportunity. Um, so I'm going to share a brief conversation, as I said, building a wealth portfolio back home. And for those who are already home, I'm somebody who was out and came home too, and the importance I found of actually building a wealth portfolio home itself. So I'd love to hear any comments, any questions. This is a free session to try and give you the basics of building that mindset to try and invest back home. So this is a part of a series I've titled a personal wealth planning lecture series for Zambians all over the world, and including Zambians. And today, the first lecture, which I really wanted to share with all of you, is the mindset. So buckle up. And I hope this is something that you can all maybe grapple onto, and it sets you up. Now, this is part of a lecture series I have called Bond Education, which focuses primarily on helping people start to build investment plans and build their own investments, and also build a strategy for building wealth through the bond markets and even through the stock markets and all the main investment markets. But we always started with the first idea that if you can build with a bond, you can build. If you can invest in bonds, you can invest in almost anything else because it gives you that starting asset. So I wanted to first start by introducing myself from the professional perspective. My name is Munyumba Mutwale. I'm a Rhodes graduate and a financial markets economist. I'm a capital markets practitioner of over 12 years in Zambia, in both as an investment advisor and a securities dealer. I'm a capital markets consultant, and I focus mainly on education of investors as well as advisory services for both retail and institutional clients. Though I really focus on retail, individual clients, I focus on them as well. The other part I also do is I focus mainly on, as I said, education, investment strategy. I help people build investment strategies of what kind of assets they want to build in, what they want to invest for, what's the vision they really want to go for. I help them with strategy and planning, risk management, what kind of insurance do you need, and also market analytics. How do you navigate? I'm kind of like a Moses to the markets effectively to try and talk you through it as well. Um, I'm also currently mainly fixed on the fixed income markets. I've had a lot of experience in bond markets. I have a lot of experience in unit trusts, specifically to do with fixed income as well, high yield, and all sorts of assets in that space. I'll take you through quite a lot of these on this series, but mainly government bonds. That is something I really wanted a lot of people to focus on. And my philosophy is try and do the traditional methods first, the traditional asset classes. So I believe in the slow and steady and those kind of things as well. So to everyone, that is a background of who I am and what I generally do. So now going into this, I want to start by introducing, as I said, something called the mindset. Where we do struggle as a people and in investing is that we struggle with mindset. And I think mindset is always the most difficult thing because it's very easy for me to get up here and throw a bunch of statistics at you and excite you about government bonds performing 10% above inflation or government bonds beating inflation 95% of the time, and Zambian government bonds have performed 16% in US dollars. I can throw all these statistics at you, but what ends up happening is people get very excited, but action and duration in the market is very difficult. This is a long term journey. The first thing I can tell you is that investing for wealth building is a long term journey. The second thing I can tell you is one of the purposes that Zambians all over the world, and for this moment, I'm going to speak specifically to Zambians around, but I'm also going to speak to the Zambians even home, is that we often take for granted the importance of building a wealth portfolio where you are going to retire. Um, as a Zambian who was raised abroad myself, I went through a lot of this, a lot of this wonder of living in another country. I mean, we moved when I was only 4 years old, but and we lived a wonderful life in countries in Botswana and South Africa. But what we found was that, every second year or third year or fifth year, you're kind of always grappling with the decision of what if this is the time I have to go back home. And the question a lot of Zambians ask themselves about transition switches in career and in lifestyle is, what do I return to? What am I going to live off? What is my lifestyle going to be like? I've gotten accustomed to a life that I have. And I think it's because a lot of people never really answered the long term wealth questions. So, wherever you are, whether you are in Zambia, outside Zambia, one of the reasons you are in the situation you are in, where you're constantly anxious, is because you haven't built an insurance policy for a day where your current work situation or your economic situation has to change. Maybe the economy of the country you're in is no longer welcoming to you, or the industry you're in back in Zambia maybe has shifted. Maybe your work situation has changed because technology has changed your economy. You need to have an insurance policy on your lifestyle of the future. And that's what wealth building is about. And the question you always have to ask yourself is, where am I most likely to retire? Where is the most likely place where, if everything was to turn away, if let's say the job I have now, where am I the most likely to settle? And that's where you have to plan your wealth. So plan it there and start building on that. Because, like I said, anything can change. The economy can change, politics can change, even your heart can change. I was a 23-year-old sitting in South Africa one day, and I thought to myself, why don't I just go home where I no longer have to ask the question of, this isn't my country, and I can go back, I can go to another country, I can go home where I can start a business, fail at business, I can do this. So sometimes your heart just changes and you want to go home, or you want to be in a specific place. Maybe you want to give yourself the freedom, even if you're in Zambia, where you want to be. So I want everyone to understand that you need to build these things to give yourself peace. And the second thing I want you to understand as we're taking this journey is that wealth is about giving yourself peace. That's really all it's about. You're kind of just trying to make sure that you can defend yourself against the uncertainties in life. Anything to do with money is about peace against uncertainty. That's really what you're trying to do. So let's go through as I said, the right mindset, because this is going to be a very good time for people to start structuring wealth and business portfolios in Zambia. This is going to be one of those times where a lot of people or a lot of wealth is going to be created. And what's going to happen is that the people who have the right mindset to invest are the people who are going to make a lot, who are going to build that wealth, and the people who have got the mindset to consume are going to enjoy life for a very brief period of time. And then when the ride maybe takes a dip downwards, they're the ones who are going to be disheartened with the situation. So you have a choice. We're at a crossroad at this country where we were maybe in 2005 when stock markets were about to take off and wealth markets were taking off and business markets and everything was taking off, to be the consumers who just get along for the ride, and then when it's all over, we're in trouble, or to be the people who build wealth through this and experience probably what is going to be, especially over this decade, what is probably going to be one of the greatest wealth expansions in this country's history, just like we saw between 2005 and 2014. We're on the cusp of this because of the economic conditions. So let's talk about the mindset that you need to have in order to do this. Now, one of the principles we talk about is what we call radical transformation, financial radical transformation. And the reality is, everybody who wants to invest, for example, has to change the way they do things. They have to change the way they see things. So you as a person have to answer this question. I need to change certain ways. I need to change certain perspectives of the way I do things. And the reason is that you cannot change your results without changing your ways. Okay. Until you change your ways, you're not going to be able to change your results. So the first step in changing your results actually comes from a biblical lesson. And it's actually one of the most famous Bible verses, but we actually kind of crafted this into what you need to start packing yourself with in order to be able to change your results. And it's, I think it's Second Chronicles 7:14, and it's very famous. If my people called by my name humble themselves, pray and seek my face, I will and change from their and turn from their wicked ways. I will hear them from heaven, forgive their sins, and heal their land. It's a very simple verse, but if you actually look at it, it actually gives you the prescriptions as to what are the limitations to you as a person to transforming. Because before he says the word change, turn from your wicked ways, there are four things that I've seen with a lot of people when it comes to investing. And when it comes to anything, whether it's economics or investing. And the first one is, what identity do you have? Because it says called by my name. So what identity do you have as a person? If you see yourself as a consumer, if you see yourself as poor, if you see yourself as those things, you will act accordingly. I like something that was said in yesterday's presidential speech. In yesterday's presidential speech, yesterday on Tuesday, not Tuesday, on Friday's presidential speech in Parliament, he was talking about creating policies for the poor, and he just stopped himself and he said, "I don't like the word poor. I really don't." And it caught me. Something I shared, and I said, "You don't get wealthy by liking the word poor." Because poor is a definition of you as a human being. It's not a view of you as a. It's not a view of you as your state. It's you as a person. So broke you can be for a moment. Broke is the state of your finances right now. Poor is the state of your mind perpetually, such that, and I think Dr. Rosia Siatombo said this once in a conversation we had in Solwezi. He said, there's some people who, if you can give them 1,000,000 kwacha, they're so not accustomed to this idea of being wealthy that they'll spend that money away to get back to the number they're comfortable with, because that's their mindset with money. So when you define yourself, you act in a specific way. So if you define yourself as poor, if you define yourself as consumer minded, if you define yourself as never things, you're gonna act in that way. So the first step you need to overcome is, who are you? Is Zambia a nation of impoverished, or is it a nation of investors? If we are the investor class, we will behave like the investor class. We will seek to do the investor class things. We will be the ones demanding that when a company gets privatized, we want to be the ones investing our savings in it when it goes on the stock market. We will be demanding that when the government issues bonds, we are the investor class. So if we speak and we act and we believe in that way, and we start to say we are the investors. So when the government says we need investors, we are putting up our hands saying we are the investors who are buying shares in our publicly listed companies. We're the investors who are buying bonds. When we start to see ourselves that way, we will participate. Just a good statistic for many people to recognize. In Zambia, 70% of shares owned on the Lusaka Stock Exchange, over 70% of them are foreign owned. That's a sad thing. Okay, in China, 95% of shares held on the Shanghai Stock Exchange are owned by Chinese and Chinese institutions, and that is why they've gone through one of the greatest wealth building exercise. So, who owns the assets of this country? And that's why as people we need to step up. So if we want to participate in the greatest wealth expansion, which is probably about to happen, we must define ourselves as the very investors that our institutions, our capital markets, and everyone is going to look for. And all being an investor requires is putting up your savings and putting it into investment instruments, whether it's bonds, whether it's stocks, whatever it is, starting to invest. The moment you invest 100 kwacha, you are an investor. So that's what you have to recognize. The second thing you need to change is your attitude. If you don't change your attitude as a person, we struggle with the ability to learn a lot when we have the wrong attitude. That's why in the Bible there it said humble yourself. So we must humble ourselves. Now, humbling yourself doesn't mean thinking less of yourself, acting poor, feigning weakness. That's not what it means. It means thinking of yourself less and thinking more at a social basis, thinking more of my nation. What am I contributing to my nation? When I save and I invest, I'm actually building capital in my nation. When I buy government bonds, I'm liberating the capital markets as well. When you think beyond yourself, that is the humbling yourself that you need. The second thing you need to be is you need to have a thirst for learning. Okay, when you're always looking to learn, that's the humility we're talking about, that you're always trying to learn. So that's the attitude. And the third thing that it said in that Bible verse was pray, which is a state of focus. When you pray, you're focusing upward. And the question I always ask our people is, what are we focusing on? When we scroll through social media, what are we discussing? When we're chatting with our friends, what are we listening to? What are we hearing people saying? Who are we hanging around? What is it that's feeding your mind? Because the reality as a person is your decisions are a result of what you take in. Okay, the mouth is similar to the rest of the body in that when you eat food, stuff comes out of you based on what you ate. When you eat information, what comes out your mouth, what comes as your actions, everything is a result of what your brain is eating. So what your brain is eating is going to define that as well. So look at that very carefully. Are you reading about the financial markets in order to participate in them? Are you checking on the stock markets regularly? So what is your focus? That's what I really want as many of us to understand. And also, what are your principles? When it comes to the principles of sound money, do you understand them? Do you understand the importance of things like compound interest? Do you understand how important saving and investing is in order to do that? Do you understand how to utilize compound interest with your savings and your investments in order to reach your wealth goals? So when you learn, when you get a good attitude and you focus on the right information and you pick up the principles by getting experience and adopting the right mindset, then you start to change. Then it's very easy to change from your wicked ways. In other words, change from the very ways that have trapped you in a situation where you cannot return to your country, or even though you're in your country, you can't even think about retiring. You're scared of the idea of retiring, or you don't have any financial freedom. You can't pursue the things that are in your heart. So that's the first thing I want everyone to think about. Change those 4 things, and it becomes very easy. So look at them in terms of investing. The next 4 parts of your radical transformation comes in getting started. One of the things that people struggle with is getting started, and we often delay. We often go into delay, and there are 3 key things that drive us. I call these the change blockers, the radical transformation blockers. And these are voices of discouragement. In Zambia, we say things like, that will never work in Z. You know, we always say things that if people invest, oh, that will never work in Z. Not in Zambia. We do things very differently, as if the same financial markets aren't making the rest of the world extremely wealthy through our markets. There's voices of disapproval. People are afraid of investing and being called a Satanist. That's a very common thing in our country. You build wealth and you're called a Satanist. People, all of a sudden, I don't know where this rumor came from, where they'll say that you flew to Dubai and sacrificed people's. I'd love to see where this flight is that people come up with, where people travel to Dubai and sacrifice each other's years. We come up with this a lot. So people are afraid that if I build wealth, I'll be called a Satanist. People are afraid that of something I don't know, so you have doubt. So you're going to battle that. You're going to battle voices that are not going to allow you to get started. And simultaneously, you're also going to battle the battles of change. Inside yourself, you're going to have 10 fears that you're going to have to deal with. Fears of losing control, fears of the unknown, fears of the unexpected, fear of loss of status. You know, when you have to save a lot and you have to invest a lot, you kind of have to now start adopting, you might start losing status. You might start changing things. fear that now you have added responsibility to manage your finances properly in order to invest. People fear that stuff. Fear of being collateral damage if markets downturn. People are terrified of that, and sometimes they get scared. They say, I'd rather not. Fear maybe of past trauma. Maybe you invested in a unit trust. As Linda said earlier, we've been burnt before. So we're always fearful of the past trauma, and we're fearful of the incoming pain we have to face when you have to cut things from your budget. So there's a journey of radical transformation that requires you to change the four things inside: your identity, your attitude, your focus, and your principles, in order to combat the things that are going to delay you, which is discouragement, disapproval, and doubt. And then the same things of trying to battle your fears. So you have to look at the financial fears that people have. And sometimes you shouldn't run away from some fears. Some things are like the fear of not having your fears of not having your life met, or fears of not having your comfort, fears of not being able to settle, fear of not being able to retire. That is a scary one for so many people. So think about the fears you're dealing with, the 10 fears, and think about what that means to you, and sometimes use the fear that's in your heart to drive you to make the right decision. But I first want to talk about the biggest problem that we all face is delay. And delay is there's a saying I want to start with: is there's no such thing as a perfect start. There's just a start. You have to declare a starting point and say, I'm getting started now. So we have like a 3-step process we tell people: learn, strategize, invest. The first step is always investing in your mind. Always invest in your mind. It's always a wonderful starting point. Learn something, build a quick strategy, a 1-page strategy, and get on and get started. And it always has to be an action date. When is my first investment going to be? That's what in our class Bond Education, where we've actually done this, I've taken 1,000 people through this program, and we have hundreds of people that have now participated. The first thing I make them do on the first lesson is open an account at the Bank of Zambia, free of charge. Here's the form. Fill it in. All you have to do is your name, your ID, your name, your ID, and a bank account in Zambia. That's all you need. All you need is your name and ID and a bank account in Zambia, and you're able to open an account at Bank of Zambia within 2 to 5 days. And that's what I make people do. First step, first lesson: take a step of action. Okay, once you take a step of action, you have committed. It's called a micro commitment. And now once you're in, you're all in. So the first step is to get a start. The Bible says in Ecclesiastes 11:3 says, the farmer who waits for the perfect weather will never plant, and if they watch every cloud, they will never harvest. It's actually one of the strong verses. So if you're always waiting for the perfect start, you're never going to get started. So while a good start is integral for a sprint, it's irrelevant in a long distance marathon. And when it comes to investing, it is a long distance marathon. Okay, so there's an old saying by the tennis professional Arthur Ashe, and he says, start where you are, use what you've got, do what you can. So I want everybody to recognize something: is that your starting point is your current income. Don't say, if I make more, I will start. No, your current income is your starting point. There is no such thing as, if I make more, I'll start investing. It's not going to happen. If you make more money, you're going to find new ways to spend it. You're going to take on more responsibilities. You're going to become the blesser of more things. You have to start where you are. You just have to make a commitment to say, this has to get started. It doesn't matter what situation I'm in. Your current and savings and investment levels, even if you've got zero, that's your starting point. Own it and get started with it. That doesn't matter. Don't be ashamed. Don't be afraid. The majority of people don't even start until they hit their 40s and they can see that retirement is coming. So it's fine. Okay. Your current age, it doesn't matter how old you are. Just get started. That's the point. And your current knowledge level. If you don't know, then start investing in knowing. Okay, find a course, find a class. That's why we started what I've done. This is why we're doing this. Get learning. Okay, just always get started. Don't wait to tomorrow. It's never going to be a good day. Now let's go through, once you've overcome starting, and let me just give you a simple example of the cost of starting. Every year you wait to reach a financial goal, and we've actually put the financial goal of 3 million kwacha as what we call financial independence. But let's talk about 1 million kwacha in financial assets. When you're in your 20s, a million kwacha in financial assets requires a person to save and invest 133 kwacha a month in our financial markets, which have a minimum return, which have a return these days of about 10% above inflation. So a person who starts in their 20s, it's 130 kwacha, that's 5 kwacha a day that you need to start putting away. The moment you start moving into your 30s, it moves from 130 kwacha, now it moves to about 400 kwacha a month that you need to start investing in, okay? Which now becomes anywhere from about 15 kwacha a day. So now all of a sudden, your amounts are increasing. You wait until your 40s. Now all of a sudden, to try and get to that million kwacha worth of financial assets, which is able to give you about 9,000 kwacha, 7 to 9,000 kwacha of monthly income, that's where you start now having to invest close to about 1,000 kwacha. Okay, so a month, or 1,200 a month. So you can see that every year you delay, you are costing yourself 15% of an increase in your savings required to reach your financial goals. So this is why I say, don't delay. Every voice that is telling you to delay is trying to make it so insurmountable that by the time it feels like it's too late, you've just given up on life. So fight the feeling to delay. It does have a cost to it. Delay has a cost. And it makes things worse as you go along, because time will pass and you will have to face these decisions. There will come a point where you will have to either relocate back, retire. Things will change and you will have to confront those decisions anyway. So no matter what, delaying doesn't solve anything. Let's talk about the mindset needed. If you are going to take advantage of the economic climate that you're going to face, of low inflation, good steady growth, investment happening in stock markets, credit finally moving away from government instruments all the way now into the private market. If you are going to operate in a growth environment, which Zambia is going to be probably for the next decade, you need to have a growth mindset. If you do not have a growth mindset, you will struggle to take on the growth opportunities financially, as an individual and as a person. Okay, so this is what I would like you all to start thinking about. Now, there are 5 pillars of the growth mindset, and they're very simple. So take these down, they're quite important. The first one is the ability to learn. And the first thing you need to recognize is you were born to learn. Okay? Everything you did came from learning. Think about a baby. They can't talk, they can't walk, anything, but they just learned. And think about how they learned. They just tried stuff. They tried expressing themselves. They listen, they mimic, they just keep trying until they get proficient at something. So the first thing you need to understand is your body is a learning system. Machine learning on computers, artificial intelligence, is based on the learning capabilities of the brain. You are designed to take in information, mimic, learn, survive everything. Learning is coded into you. So the first thing you need to understand is you are born to learn. The second thing you need to learn about learning abilities, you increase your mental capacity and your learning by practice. You do not become brilliant just by taking in so much information. You take in the information and you practice it and you learn. And you can learn anything as long as you apply yourself. So understand the first pillar is the ability to learn. The second pillar is you must overcome the fixed mindset. So learning and improving is better than being perfect. Do not measure yourself by being perfect. And the fixed mindset will tell you, I'm born this way. The fixed mindset will say, I was born into a poverty background, or I'm born in a poor country. This won't work for me. I don't have the right skin color. I have the right education. I'm not the right gender. When you start saying these things, I'm not this, and start disqualifying yourself, that is the fixed mindset. The growth mindset evolves. I'm here now, but this is where I'm going. The growth mindset is moving. So you have to accept, you have to reject your current situation as your permanent status and say, this is temporary. I'm moving out of here. Okay. So this is what you find. So the growth mindset will help you say, where I am now is temporary, but where I'm going is really important. So in order to break the fixed mindset, don't be afraid to ask for help, seek advice. It's what people are there for. That's my job. Collaborate with people. Get into groups if you can. Investing in groups also helps. We've encouraged people to join investment cooperatives. We have formed 5 of them from our classes, and they've been investing in government bonds together to help each other and stimulate and encourage each other. And they've put hundreds of thousands of kwacha of savings just in the last 5 months into the government bond market. And it's been brilliant to see Zambians doing that. We've seen international bond cooperatives of Zambians now starting to invest. So if you're struggling with investing alone, collaborate with people and learn from failure. Learning from failure is critical when it comes to the growth mindset. People who have a growth mindset take failure as learning opportunities. And thus, pillar 3 of the growth mindset is learning from failure, learning from mistakes. And learning from mistakes is a part of learning. Mistakes are only harmful if they discourage you, if they make you risk averse, and if you refuse to take ownership of them. So if you learn from failure, if you are willing to learn from failure, if you make a bad investment today and you'll say, I'm going to learn from that mistake, that's okay. What can I learn from that? If you jump into a stock, I mean, we all did this when cryptocurrency came in. We rushed in and then we learned how to navigate it. But you learn, okay? And it's not something to discourage it. There's even a way to do it. But you learn. You learn from a bad mistake. You learn from a bad investment. You learn from these things. So don't take a failure as the end of your life. Take it as a learning opportunity for the next time that comes. And if you think about that, you'll even realize your failures are more of an asset than your successes. And the third part of learning from mistakes is mistakes are an opportunity mistakes will sometimes just call on you to slow down, review, and listen to feedback. So if you do that, if you just slow down, take it in carefully, review what went wrong, and then listen to feedback, get some feedback, you'll be able to make better investment decisions. So it's a frightening thing to invest, but if you have that growth mindset, you're going to say, every bad mistake I made, every bad investment decision I'll make, maybe I invested in a stock that went down, that's fine, I've learned. Next time, this is what I'll do. So if you just have the next time mentality when it comes to the things you're doing and you're trying to make sure you're improving your decision making next time, growth is one of your best friends. One of the things in one of our classes, we have a person who has been investing in the Zambian stock market for 30 years, who actually speaks to people. And he says, look, when I started, I used to do massive calculations. I used to try and figure things out. I used to really go deep into it. Now, these days, my investments are instinctive because I've been doing this for so long. I can read the situation better, but it took him time to do that. The fourth part of the growth mindset is being determined. So you're going to get frustrated. Maybe it's taking too long. Maybe it's not moving fast enough. And the first thing you should do when you get frustrated is recognize you're frustrated. And then just remind yourself, this is a process. Okay? And then just reset your mind. That's what you need to do. So recognize you're frustrated, remind yourself it's a process, and reset your mind and avoid external blame. Don't try and blame the world. Yes, it could be somebody else's fault, but take ownership of the situation. And then the fifth part of the growth mindset, which is really important, is smart goal setting. Specific, measurable, attainable. I don't like to say realistic. I like to say relevant and time bound for your goals. Name your goals. But in order to achieve your goals, you have to break it down to a habit and build a system around that habit. So I always tell people, look, we can talk about the goal of retiring and this and that, but let's break it down to, and I call this task. Okay. What is the target amount you need to save for a retirement goal or any goal? What is the target amount you need to save? Where do you need to put it? I call it the allocation. So it's task, target amount, target, allocation, savings rate, and kick factor. Those are the 4 letters of that acronym, task. Target, what is the amount I need to save and what time is what is the time it needs to be saved by, or when do I need to reach this goal? Allocation, am I saving it in stocks, am I saving it in bonds, am I building it in property, how much is going between these assets? Then S, savings rate, what percentage of my current income do I need to start saving in order to attain this goal? And kick factor is, what is the reason, what is the visualized vivid reason? So in other words, when I visualize victory of this, what does my retirement look like? Then you need to ask yourself, what are the potential obstacles that are going to get between me? Do I have horrible spending habits that are in the way? What are the obstacles? Do I have a lack of knowledge? Then you need to create a battle plan for those obstacles and start saying, let me go in for those obstacles. And that is where you now start to overcome and name your goals. So your growth mindset is trapped in these 5 pillars. So you need to break out and have the ability to learn. Overcome your fixed mindset. Learn from your mistakes. Be determined and have a vision and set goals. So once you do this, you can engage in goal-based investing very well, and do it quite well. But in order to invest, okay, in order to start making good decisions, you need to go through an improvement of knowledge and understand how information works. So it's something we call the Dickwey model. It's a pyramid of information. And it basically says that you're going to have to collect financial data, sort it into financial information, build your financial knowledge, and gain financial wisdom. Okay, so the top is you want to become financially wise. So data is just facts, figures. If I tell you share price of Zambeef is 2 kwacha 60, what is that? Okay, so that's the first thing you need to understand. So you need to collect that data, then put it into an information set. This is what advisors do. This is why I do market analytics. I present market information for clients. So it's an organized, categorized, useful, summarized market, so that you can trend what is the share price of a company. If you're looking at a company like Zambia, if you've heard this news that they're trying to expand and export to Kenya for grain, now you're looking at what is the share price trajectory. That is market information. That is financial information put together. But then what does this mean? To understand the meaning of something requires you learn what it is. And that meaning is financial knowledge. So when you know what financial information is and you know what it means, that's knowledge. So data with context is information. Information with meaning and understanding is knowledge. But the final step you don't want to stop at knowledge. Don't just consume knowledge. You want insight. When you have insight into finance, you are now able to make good decisions because you're able to discern patterns. You understand financial principles. You understand you understand the processes that take place. So those are the 3 P's of wisdom: being able to discern patterns, being able to understand principles, and being able to see processes and utilize processes. Because every pattern will reveal a principle, every principle will have a process, and you're able to make decisions in a systematic fashion, in a less risky fashion. You don't jump when a stock jumps. You don't jump when you hear news only. You fit it into your information matrix, and then you use your wisdom. Now, there's no shortcut to insight. It takes time. You do this over time with practice. You learn from mistakes. You understand things, and you build some principles that you're going to use. Are you a value investor? Are you a growth investor? What kind of investor are you? Are you building a safe and steady portfolio? Are you taking sophisticated risks? What is your portfolio speaking of? And that is built, that's the kind of wisdom you need to start applying. And that comes with time and practice. So don't rush the process. And as you're doing this, as you're learning, you're going to have to apply 3 levels of sight. Where people get things wrong, myself included, whether we're dealing with business, whether we're dealing with finance, and we're trying to get into the growth mindset of harnessing all of this back home, because Zambia is about to become a growth explosion. When you see people pouring money into your country, don't be fooled. They're here to make a return. You can be part of it, or you can be a spectator of it. Your choice. But the problem a lot of us face is it's the way we see things. How we act is a result of what we see. And I love this part. And yes, I reference the Bible a lot, but it's something I've quoted today multiple times. Even on a radio show I do in the morning. And I talked about it. It's from the book of Second Kings 6, where it's the story of Elisha and the Aramean army that are coming for him. And there's a very famous verse which we all love to pray, and we say, Lord, they are more for me than they are against me. But it comes from this story. And it comes from the fact that the Syrian troops were trying to attack Elisha, and his assistant comes out and he sees this horde of army and he gets scared. And Elisha looks at him and says, they are more for us than they are against us. Calm down. And he prays to God and he says, Lord, open his eyes so that he sees that. And when he saw that, he was less scared. And, it opened my eyes to the fact, and even when I sit down with people and I do wealth consultations, I always go through things and I say, once I pull all your financial information together and I put it into one sentence, what I often find with a lot of people is they become calm. They whatever fear they had all of a sudden starts to wither away, because once we put all the information together, we're able to devise a plan and we're able to say, this is the direction you need to go into. And I've done this in 1-hour consultations with so many people. I've done hundreds of them now. where I just sit down with people, go through their information, and afterwards they even get surprised that, okay, so I'm already on track. Oh, so that's there. Okay, so this is how much I have here. So this is all I need to save to get there, and this is what I need to execute, because I bring it down to a few sentences. And once they see things differently, all of a sudden they act differently. So here's what I believe: there are three levels of sight that we operate with as people. We operate with plain sight, insight, and foresight. We learn from hindsight, but when we're operating and we're making decisions, there's plain sight, insight, and foresight. These three are always at work. Too many of us make decisions on plain sight. And I've seen this even with people who are outside the country a lot, is that they make decisions based on the situation they're in and on the superficial level of what they see. Got a wonderful paying job. I'm doing good. Cool. I'm okay. And it's almost this belief that I'm going to be like this forever. And it supports impulsive decisions that are often very short term. So plain sight becomes very dangerous as a way to make decisions. Insight is an in-depth understanding of a situation where you understand the underlying principles and processes. This is when you're wise to the situation that you're in, and it supports wise decision making, financial wisdom. So you want to make sure that if you have insight and in-depth understanding of the processes and principles of the situation you find yourself in financially, what age are you? How much are you earning? How much time do you have to retirement? And what risks are you willing to take? Having that insight now to hold how all this comes together in a financial plan and an investment plan, what assets are available, which stocks can suit this portfolio. That is insight now. When you're operating on things that are beyond the superficial level and you're going into depth, that level of insight comes from sitting with professionals, having expert advice, and also being an investor for a prolonged period of time. You gain insight and you make decisions with wisdom. You don't make decisions with reactions. You make decisions with wisdom, and it comes very fast when you've practiced and you've seen this a lot. This promotes wise decision making. Now, the third level of sight you need to have is what we call foresight. And foresight is really important because you're looking at a vision. You're looking at a map of the future. What are you seeing in the future that's guiding your decision making? So this will guide your mindset. What are you making decisions with? Are you making it with plain sight, insight, or foresight? And you got to try and make that work. In the rest of that story, Elisha, after his servant sees God's army on the left and right and becomes emboldened, Elisha says a second prayer, and he says, God, can you blind the Aramean army? And he blinded them and he misled them into an attack. So one of the things I can tell you about plain sight is you often get deceived and you often get scared. So if you're terrified by the situation you're in and you are deceived into doing some of the wrong things, then you are operating with plain sight. You need insight and you need foresight. A combination of insight for the plans that you want to have, and foresight for the direction. Foresight gives you direction. So what retirement are you looking at? What college do you want to send your child to? What lifestyle are you looking at? Now, what health plan do you want to have? Where do you want to travel? So you've got this target that's sitting in the horizon there, and then you use insight to develop the right financial plan to get there. So insight is really important for the actions you need to take. Foresight is really important for the direction you are heading towards. But avoid making decisions plainly from plain sight. That is you often make impulsive and incorrect decisions whenever you take plain sight decisions. So altogether, we've really wrapped into the right mindset that would affect your decision making when it comes to your finances and your investments. And just on a final step, and though this is something we'll continue, we'll go through the second part of this lecture, where I'm going to go through financial wealth planning. And financial wealth planning in terms of the pyramid is you've got to plan your life in order to be able to plan your finances. But the first thing I'll tell you is, in order to plan your life, is you have to understand what is life fulfillment. Those who build stuff are looking for financial freedom because they want the freedom to pursue meaning in life. And to pursue meaning in life, there's a pyramid that we use where we say you're looking for meaning. In order to attain that meaning, you need peace. In order to have that peace, you need to meet your goals. In order to meet your goals, you need to manage your money well. So that's like 4 steps you need to look at. Fulfillment requires peace. Peace requires goals. Goals require management. So if you can go through those 4 levels, that's what we do. So we kind of move through that. Now, going through your fulfillment. I just want to go through what we call your life fulfillment. There are three things you want to ask yourself with fulfillment. This is the kind of the end of my life comes. What does it mean? You want to achieve your purpose in life, your dreams and your aspirations. And Rick Warren has these into what we call the five purposes of life. You want to live an inspirational life. You want to become an inspirational story. You want aspiration to other people. I've read the books of Booker T. Washington. I love that man. He died in 1915, but here I am in 2022 reading his books and living by his books. His books, The Future of the American Negro and Up from Slavery, that encouraging story that encouraged Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, and so many people. That's an important part of life. You want to have social connections, good relationships with people, and you want to build a fruitful life with people. You know, the relationships are so important in a happy life, but you want the financial freedom to have those. You want to mature to the point where you're a good example for people to follow. Booker T. Washington, again, is an example of great character. Somebody I look up to in my life, and I think about what he's like. And you want to be that person who people would say, what would so and so do? You know, that's what you want to say. You want to have inner peace and connection. You really want to love. You want to love yourself. Or if you're religious, you want to connect with your God. You want to connect with the pursuit of science. Whatever your life system is, you want to connect with the highest level of that. And most importantly, you want to make a contribution to society. Your mission is to use your gifts to change society, to make society happy, to unify society, to bring order and structure to society. Those are the missions of life that you're looking for. So you want to achieve your purpose, your dreams, your aspirations, because this is up to if I was to die today, what would my life be like? And the second question you want to ask in your life fulfillment is, what are you leaving behind? Are you leaving behind buildings, projects, businesses, institutions, assets, systems, wealth portfolios, bonds, stocks? What are you leaving for people to be able to pick up from and to build on? What foundations are you leaving behind for the next generation? And the third question, which is the most important that people tend to overlook, is who are you leaving behind? We tend to leave people behind who are not wealth creators themselves. We train children to be wealth consumers, and then we're shocked that 70% of wealth that passes to the next generation does not make it. They consume it instantly, and then they wipe out the family wealth. You spent your life building houses, and they sell it very quickly because they go and buy a car with it, which breaks down, which they have to sell, and then they have to start again. And then they go around telling stories that my daddy used to be rich, my mom used to be rich, but we fell on tough times. So the questions people need to battle with is, who are you leaving behind? And this comes with what I call the two obituary tests. It's a very scary thing to do, but write the obituary, or the write what you'd want said at your funeral. What would you be so proud to hear at your funeral in terms of your achievements, what you've left behind, and who you've left behind? Because those are the things that they're going to be said. And then write the one you have now. If you were to drop today, and you wrote that obituary, and then read the two next to each other, and I promise you're going to start thinking very differently about how much foresight you attach to your decisions. Whether that car, which just had this instant kick of getting the respect of people, was more important than leaving a wealth portfolio that you could pass on and maybe support a church or support an institution, maybe the reading program you thought you could finance and make the world a better place. So these are the questions you want to try and answer in your life. And why do you have to look at life from such a long distance view? It's because the only thing that gives you the inspiration to take a 20-year investment decision, like I talked about, I said, if you want to save to 1 million kwacha or 3 million, as we talk about, if you're in your 20s, that's saving 400 kwacha. If you want to start talking about 35 years of saving and investing, the longer you give yourself, the better a chance you have of attaining a goal. Is because in order to do that, you need to see future glory. Romans 8:18 has this wonderful verse that says, yet what we suffer now is nothing compared to the glory he will reveal to us later. And what he's saying is the human mind works this way, that what we see in the future that's beautiful, that's aspirational to what we want, is what will drive us to make the sacrifices of today. So when you think about, should I buy a fancy car today, or should I save for my retirement, which I can pass on to be part of my wealth estate? Should I compile a set of bonds that will take care of me? Should I think about this? Should I go on this glamorous vacation this month? Or should I think about what I'm saving and investing for the next generation, or what I'm thinking and saving and investing for a time when maybe I don't have this high profile job. To make that sacrifice, you've got to see something in the future that's aspirational to you. So to consistently commit to saving and investing and to make good future decisions, you need to see a vividly painted picture of the future you want. And in order to do that, that's why you need this picture of my 5 purposes of life. What do I want to leave behind? That's why writing those 2 obituaries, it's really important. It'll take you to that place in life. Now, in order to pursue these things, you want to hit 4 pillars of freedom. And this is where we're going to end today. The 4 pillars of financial freedom, because people love this word. People will say, I want financial freedom, but nobody can define it. I've asked people to define it. So this is the financial advisory terminology of financial freedom. It comes in 4 components. The first one is freedom from worrying about your basic needs. This is what your job does. Where you work finances your basic needs. So because you work, therefore you're not worried about it. But you're always in the back of your mind thinking that if I get fired, I can't take care of my basic needs. So you're terrified. You may think you have job security, but the only security you have is within that job. But that job can be taken away from you. The company can collapse, the institution can break down, the economy can melt down. So you want a freedom from worrying about your basic needs. So if you have assets, you can take care of your basic needs because assets generate cash flow. I'm going to talk about the principles of assets later. The second pillar you're looking for is freedom from worrying about the well-being of your loved ones. As you are able to take care of yourself, now you want to educate your children, feed your spouse, your loved ones, maybe your mother, somebody who you take care of. You want the people who are in your circle. Now, I know sometimes we get into black tax mode on this one. That's why I said your loved ones, not the ones that are forced upon you. I know in African community, we kind of just push ourselves to try and serve everyone, but serve who you can. Be helpful to who you can and who you have a great responsibility to. Deal with who you have a responsibility to first. But always remember this: you are of no use to the world when you join the poor yourself. Steve Harvey always says this: best thing you can do for the poor is not join them. And the third pillar, which is the second last one here of financial freedom, is to allocate your time to things of meaning. The only way to free yourself from your time constraints of you need to go somewhere to make money so you can feed yourself and your loved ones is to have assets that replace you. So when your financial assets are able to meet your needs, take care of your loved ones, that frees up your time to go and do things that you find meaningful, which are your 5 purposes of life. And then on top of that, you need to be free from disorder and chaos. But in order to meet these needs, you need to save for your children's education, save for your retirement, build a wealth estate, finance your health care. You really need to do stuff like that. Finance your big purchases as opposed to maybe getting into debt for them. But find a way to make sure that you build a financial system that deals with retirement, child education, health care, estate, and risk as well. If you deal with these things, you get peace. And once you get peace from your financial assets, you have time to pursue meaning. And this is the mindset that will develop the wealth of the next 10 years and those who participate in the greatest wealth expansion of our country. And it will differentiate from those, unfortunately, who will just be viewers on it and spectators and probably will grow bitter as time goes on. So you have a choice which one you'd like to be in, but the battle starts here. Thank you very much.
Goodness me, the battle starts here. The battle of the mind, and this is where most of the challenges start from, isn't it? Up there
Yes.
in the mind. So, how do you think people can start fighting this battle? Where would they start from? How do you start fighting the battle of the mind?
Influences. Always look at what is influencing you. What are
Mm,
you consuming information wise? Every person who changes their action changes what they're consuming information wise. So, are you
mm,
following when you're on social media? That's eating. In fact, let me just say it this simply, Linda. If
mhm.
a person wants to change how they look, if they
Yeah.
want to change their health, they have to eat differently. They have to
Mhm,
exercise. So as a person, think about your mind that way. You want to change your finances. What are you consuming financially in terms of
mhm,
knowledge wise? What are you exercising financially? Are you saving a lot? So if you want to battle the mind, what you need to do is change what's influencing your mind. And there's an old saying, Voltaire used to say this. He says, the ear is the avenue to the heart. And biblically, it says, out of the mouth spills the abundance of the heart. So if you
Absolutely.
connect those two statements together, what you speak and think is a result of what you're hearing most often. So look at your influences. Are you following financial advisors? Are you following financial news? Are you looking at markets? If you're looking at these things, you'll see your decision making starts to change and your mindset starts to adjust.
Yeah. And I think this is why we thought of coming up with this program, because
Yeah.
as a people generally, people will agree with me, we're more inclined to consume exciting things, seemingly exciting things like gossip,
Yeah.
who's doing what, who's telling who off, and that sort of stuff. But it's absolutely critical that programs like this are taken seriously. You talked about how we need to focus on the principles when investing. You talked about the two P's, principles, and what was the other one?
Processes.
And the processes, yeah. So these processes could be in form of structures. So what you
Yep.
do consistently becomes habit. So you follow
Yep.
certain principles, and in no time at all, you're going to find that you have changed the way your finances are looked after. And then you mentioned Booker T. Washington, who is one of my favorite
Yes.
humans on the planet. And this is one of my favorite quotes from him. Opportunities never come the second time, nor do they wait for our leisure. I just had to tell you about this one. I
Yeah.
always use this one. When an opportunity comes, just grab it. For me, I may be offered a position, a job, or a business opportunity. I may not know how to do that particular thing. I first learned this before I came across Booker T. Washington. Richard Branson, Sir Richard Branson, who is the founder of Virgin, Virgin
Yeah.
Airlines, Virgin Books, and all that sort of stuff. And he wrote this book called "Losing My Virginity." It had nothing to do with what you may think it has
Yeah.
something to do with, but it had something to do with business. And in that book, he talked about how he was given this opportunity to become an author. And he was dyslexic at school. He knew nothing about writing. Then he was given an opportunity to start an airline. So he gathered very intelligent people who knew about running an airline. So basically, what that book taught me personally was if you're offered an opportunity and you know that this opportunity is pretty good, say yes and spend the rest of the night learning how to do that thing, because that opportunity may not appear again. So this opportunity that you're offering Zambians to have financial literacy for nothing, literally like for nothing, grab it. It may not come again. I may be not interested next time to have Mr. Mutwale next week. So grab it, people. If you're watching, please grab this opportunity. Get in touch, respond to the message that we're going to put on our Facebook page, and then someone will get in touch with you. This has just
Yeah.
been fantastic. Another thing that you mentioned was about the smart target. Whatever decision that you make, investment decision has to be specific. It's good. It's good to be measurable. Even though you rephrase some of the,
Yeah.
yeah. Which one was that you rephrased? And can you just tell us why?
I rephrased realistic to relevant,
Ah,
because all targets are realistic if you
mhm,
give them the time and the effort. All you have to do is break something down into how long and how much. How
yeah.
much, like if I tell you you need to save to if you want to save and invest and build 3 million kwacha in wealth,
Mhm,
I'll ask you how old are you and when is the retirement point.
yeah.
So I broke it down into what I call target, allocation, savings rate, and K
Mhm,
is the kick factor, which is what you're looking for. So it's always relevant. So you just have to all I have to ask you is the question is how relevant is this to you? How relevant is it to your vision? How relevant is it to what the foresight you have in life? That third vision level that you have. The more relevant it is to that, the more inspired you are to achieve it. So it's not really whether tasks are realistic, it's
mhm,
how inspired is a person to
mhm.
achieve it. So that's why I changed the R from realistic to relevant.
I think that's quite realistic. You changing that, it makes a lot of sense. And you also mentioned things that people should be focusing on to have a peace of mind. And you mentioned health, retirement, education of your children, which is quite critical. And I picked up on the health. A health in blessed nation. If you're a nation that is sick, you can't really, no matter how amazing you are as a leader, it's very difficult to
Yeah.
prosper as a nation. And also being in diaspora over the past decades, it's been crystal clear that a lot of us have not really invested in our health. When someone sadly dies, we're kind of passing the ball around to raise money to get the body back home. And also, so I think this will be something that I would really like us to zero in specifically on how our people can focus on this and prepare well. That inevitable time is appointed for man. I love the fact that you quote scripture in all your teachings, because there's a lot of there's a lot of wisdom in the Bible, and it's a financial wisdom, shall I
Yeah.
say, isn't there? Yeah, it's appointed for
No,
man to
there
die
is.
once. And thereafter face judgment. So that is that one guaranteed thing. We're all going to go. I know as Africans, we don't like to talk about that. So it's important that we prepare for that inevitable time by taking health insurance. So fantastic program. We've got quite a lot of questions already, and people just commenting. Some people have just been saying, I don't have anything to say. I'm just lapping it all up. Lapping, which is, I think that must be a British person. It's a very British thing to say, lapping it all up. Well, thank you so much for having joined us. If you're just joining us, viewers, you've been watching the Linda Banks Show, and I had my special guest, Mr. Munyumba Mutwale, who is an economist, and not only is he an economist, by the sound of things, he's also a Bible scholar. Not only is he a Bible scholar, he's a financial expert. He's a financial expert who is going to be helping us navigate through this crazy financial maze of investing. I'm learning so much myself, things that I never knew. And when you hear about government bonds, you're just like, where do these exist? Do they exist in a cloud somewhere? So as the weeks progress, we're going to learn so much. Please feel the fear and just do it anyway. Mr. Mtwala, your last sentiment, please.
So investing is the reason why we talked about what we did on mindset is because investing is a three-pronged journey. It's an emotional journey, it's a journey of technical understanding, so it's an enlightening journey, and then it's an experiential journey. So those are the three things you're going to need to do. You're going to need to go through your emotions, your experience, and your enlightenment. So today we've been dealing with the emotional part of it, the mindset. Next point we're going to start going is the enlightenment, where we're going to have to now start going through, where did these government bonds come from? Where does investment come from? How do I utilize it? And how do I build a strategy? And finally, you're going to have to now start going into the experiential part of it. How do I go into action? How do I enact this now? I understand it. I feel it's the right thing. Now, how do I enact it so that I can move forward? So those are the three stages we're going to take you through throughout this journey.
Okay. And how many of these lessons, in case someone has just joined and they're thinking, oh, good, what can they expect from the consequent the lessons coming up, apart from the next one?
Okay, so from these next part, there's about a 5-part series, but in depth. I do have something which I do call bond education, which goes through about 10. We actually have about 10 of these, but we're going to go through 5 of these so that we can condense them and get you through this 3-step process. But the in-depth analysis of now how these things work, that's a full 10-step one, which you can find even on my page as well. But there'll be 4 more after this.
Excellent. So this is just to whet your appetite, get interested in what is out there, what you can invest in, and you can do the rest yourself. Now, again, a disclaimer. Mr. Mutwale is the expert here. Everything he talks about, no one from TV Wakwetu or myself. Actually, I'm learning, so I'm beginning to invest in some of these
Yeah.
I do not have specific shares or a stake into the business so that, you know, I'm promoting him. No, we just want to bring this free education for the masses. You've got a fertile economic and business environment in Zambia, so why not make use of it? Well, you have been watching the Linda Banks show on TV Bakweto, and I've been your host, Linda Banks, with my guest, Stephen. I'm too excited, you know. I'm looking forward to all this investment talk. Mr. Munyumba Mutwale, thank you so much. God bless you, and God bless our country. Good night.
Thank you very much. Good night.